You studied for hours. By morning, half of it was gone. You highlighted the whole page in bright yellow. You still couldn't explain it to a friend. You read the chapter 3 times in a row. The words felt familiar, but the meaning slipped. You told yourself you just need more time. More time was never the real problem. The top students in every classroom know a quiet secret. They do not study harder than you. They study in a way your teachers rarely explain out loud. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Your brain is not broken. You have simply been using it backwards. By the end of this, you will know exactly what those students do differently and how to do it yourself. Here is the strange part. Most top students will not tell you their real method because it does not sound impressive. It sounds almost too simple. They do not reread. They do not highlight endlessly. They do not sit passively in front of a book for 6 hours straight. Instead, they force their brain to do one specific kind of work. That work feels harder than reading. It feels slower. It feels, at first, like you are failing. And that feeling is the exact reason it works. The technique is called active recall, but the label matters less than what is actually happening inside your head when you use it. Here's what is actually happening in your brain. Every time you try to pull a piece of information out of memory, you strengthen the pathway that leads to it. The struggle is the workout. The retrieval is the lift. When you reread, your brain sees familiar words and quietly says, "I already know this." That feeling of familiarity is a trick. It is not the same as knowing. Recognition is easy, recall is hard, and only one of them shows up on a test, in a conversation, or in real life. Top students learned, often by accident, that they had to close the book and struggle. That struggle is not a sign of weakness. It is the sound of learning happening. So here is how they actually study. They read a short section, then they closed the book. Then they tried to explain what they just read, out loud, in their own words, with nothing in front of them. At first, it is painful. Whole chunks are missing. Sentences fall apart halfway through. That is the point. Then they open the book, check what they missed, and try again. Each attempt is a rep. Each rep carves the memory deeper. This is the shift from a reader to a retriever, from someone who studies to someone who actually remembers. And this is where most people go wrong. They confuse the feeling of studying with the fact of learning. A yellow page feels productive. A neat set of notes feels productive. But feeling productive and being productive are not the same thing. Highlighting is not learning. Copying is not learning. Reading is not learning. Learning is what happens when your brain works to produce the answer, not just to recognize it. There is a name for the trap most learners fall into. Cognitive scientists call it the illusion of fluency. The more you see something, the smoother it feels in your mind, and your brain reads that smoothness as understanding. So you stop studying, sure you know it. Then the test comes and it is gone. The fix is almost rude in its simplicity. Make yourself struggle a little, on purpose. Try to answer before you look. Try to explain before you check. Try to teach before you feel ready. That small, deliberate struggle is where memory is actually made. Now let us go deeper into how top students actually run this in practice, step by step. Because the idea of active recall is one thing, building it into a real study session is another. And this is where the small details start to matter more than the big theory. The first step is to turn everything into questions. Instead of writing a note that says, "The heart has 4 chambers," they write a question that says, "How many chambers does the heart have, and what does each one do?" Notes tell you the answer. Questions force you to find it, and every time you find it, you strengthen the pathway. The second step is to space it out. They do not cram the questions all in one night. They revisit them the next day, then a few days later, then a week later. Each time the answer feels slightly harder to reach, the recall gets stronger. This is called space practice, and it works with a natural rhythm of how your brain forgets. Think of memory like a garden. Cramming is dumping a whole bucket of water in one spot, once. Space practice is watering a little, often. One drowns. the other grows. The third step is to mix things up. Instead of drilling one topic for an hour, they switch between related topics. This feels messier. It also builds stronger, more flexible understanding. Your brain is forced to notice differences, compare ideas, and choose the right tool for the right question. That is the kind of thinking real exams and real life demand. Here's a small test you can run on yourself tonight. Pick something you read this week. Close your eyes. Try to explain it out loud, as if you were teaching a curious 10-year-old. If you get stuck, that gap is not a failure. That gap is your study plan. You just found the exact spot your brain needs to work on. Open the book, fix that gap, close the book, and try again. Most people never do this simple loop. Top students do it constantly, almost without thinking. There is another quiet habit worth naming. Top students are not afraid to feel stupid for a few minutes. They will sit with a question they cannot answer. They will guess. They will be wrong. They will laugh at themselves and try again. That willingness to be temporarily wrong is a superpower, because every wrong guess, followed by the correct answer, creates a stronger memory than getting it right the first time. Think about that for a second. The mistake is not a setback. The mistake is the moment your brain finally pays attention. Most of us were taught to fear being wrong in front of others. Top students quietly rewired that fear into fuel. Scientists have a name for this too. They call it the generation effect. When you generate an answer yourself, even a wrong one, you remember the correction far better than if you had just been told. So being wrong is not the enemy of learning. Being passive is. Now, a warning. Active recall can feel exhausting at first. It uses more mental energy than rereading, because you are actually thinking, not just looking. That is normal. That is the workout. Just like your legs burn the first week you start running, your mind will feel tired the first week you start truly recalling. Start small. 5 minutes of recall is worth an hour of rereading, then 10 minutes, then 20. Your brain will adapt faster than you expect. And here's a shift most learners never make. Stop measuring your studying by time. Start measuring it by retrievals. Not, I studied for 2 hours. Instead, I answered 30 questions from memory today. One number tracks effort, the other tracks learning. Top students think in retrievals. That is the quiet difference. There is one more piece almost nobody talks about: sleep. Everything you practiced recalling during the day gets consolidated at night. Your brain replays it, sorts it, and files it into long-term storage while you sleep. Skip sleep, and you skip the filing. The work you did during the day literally does not get saved properly. This is why pulling an all-nighter often feels productive and then evaporates by exam time. The formula is simple: recall during the day, sleep at night, repeat. Let me share the tiny daily routine that pulls all of this together. In the morning, spend 5 minutes recalling what you learned yesterday, without looking. Just try to list it out loud or on paper. During the day, when you study something new, close the book every few minutes and quickly explain it back to yourself. Check what you missed. Try again. In the evening, do one quick pass of the hardest questions from the past week, only the ones that still feel shaky. That is it. No fancy app, no color-coded planner, just a loop of question, guess, check, repeat. You can do it with a notebook. You can do it on a walk. You can do it while washing dishes, quietly quizzing yourself in your head. The tool does not matter. The loop is what matters. Do this for 2 weeks and something strange happens. You start to feel your memory getting sharper, not in a magical way, but in a solid, dependable way. Ideas start to connect. Words come faster. You notice yourself explaining things to friends more clearly. You stop dreading tests as much because you already know what you actually know and what you do not. That is the real prize, not just better grades, a brain you can trust. Because most people go through life quietly unsure whether their memory is any good. Top students are not born with better memories. They just spend more time asking their memory to do things. And a memory that gets asked grows. A memory that only gets fed forgets. Now, if you have ever sat in a classroom feeling like everyone else understood something faster, please hear this. You were almost certainly not slower. You were just doing the passive version of studying while a few others were doing the active version. That gap looks like talent. It is actually technique, and technique can be learned. There's one last thing we're saying before your challenge. Do not wait until you feel ready to start. Readiness is a feeling that shows up after you begin, not before. The first few tries at recall will feel clumsy. That is not a sign you are doing it wrong. That is a sign you are finally doing it right. So here's your small challenge for this week. Pick one subject, one book, or one skill you care about. Study it for 20 minutes. But every 5 minutes, close the source and try to explain what you just learned in your own words, with nothing in front of you. Struggle a little, guess, be wrong, check. Try again. Do that every day for 7 days, then compare it to how you usually study. You will feel the difference before the week is over. That is the technique top students never quite explain, because to them it just feels like thinking. But now you know it has a shape, a science, and a simple daily loop. Your brain was built for this. It is a recall machine, not a reading machine. Give it the right kind of work and it will surprise you. If any of this landed with you, subscribe to Bodhi Brain and stay close. There is a lot more, and I want to help you build a mind you can trust. Like this video if it helped even one idea click, and drop a comment with the one subject you are going to try active recall on first. Reading those comments is one of the best parts of my week. I will see you in the next one. Keep asking your brain to work. It will always rise to meet you.